How's it going, everyone? We're going to take a look at a very cool figure here. I'm very excited about this one. To be honest, I'm always excited to open figures and toys, but this one is a brand new figure by a brand new label. So Rocket Toys is debuting a 1/6 scale figure of Date Masamune from Sengoku Basara. Now, before I get into the actual box and the figure itself, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes to just quickly explain. What is Sengoku Basara? Sengoku Basara is a Capcom IP. It's mostly started as a video game, but there has been an anime of it, there's been manga of it, there's been a live stage play of it. There's been a lot of stuff for this property. It is mostly really popular in Japan. Outside of Japan, your kind of exposure to it might be quite limited. For me, I tried the game a little bit. It's very much like Dynasty Warriors, but really about feudal Japan and Sengoku period. And then there's also the anime, which I really enjoy, and I encourage people to watch it if they're curious or like the character designs of this. The anime is the easiest thing to get into. It's not very long, only a couple of seasons and an OVA, so it's quite easy and quick to kind of get through. And it's really a fun watch with really nice looking animation as well, and just kind of visual aesthetics is really cool. And of course, the characters designs of this property are really good. Like I said, it's very popular in Japan, but it's kind of been quiet. Really, they only talk about it from the anniversary point of view, but I don't think we've had a new game in quite a while, so it's a shame. I would like to see more of this property. There's always rumors circulating around about reviving the property in Japan, but yeah, who knows. Outside of Japan, we did get the first game on PS2, but it was called Devil Kings, and they kind of localized and stripped out a lot of the Japanese cultural and historical stuff from the game. But then they also skipped the second game, and then they went back to the third game, localized that properly in English, maintained the cultural aspect and the Japanese theming of it more, kept all the names more the same, and then they skipped Sengoku Basara 4. So it's kind of been very inconsistent in terms of outside of Japan sort of push. So a little bit disappointing. But for those of us who do know what it is, I'm sure most of us actually enjoy the series, especially because they are really cool looking characters. Now, going back to the actual figure. So Rocket Toys, new company, they have got a few figures coming out. So this is actually their first figure. So this is Date Masamune 1/6 scale collectible. They are also doing Sanada Yukimura, who's kind of his rival as far as that kind of property is concerned as well. And then they're also doing figures from the Naruto series. So not the actual Naruto character, but they're doing Uchiha, Itachi, Uchiha Madara, and Hatake Kakashi, which all three of them look absolutely amazing, and I've got them on pre-order as well. But we're going to take a look at this one in this video, and once I get Yukimura and the others, I'll do separate videos on those. I've taken a sneak peek at this Date Masamune figure, and it's looking really solid. So I can't wait to actually explore it a little bit further. But talking about the actual box, you can see straight away here, it's a really nice, beautiful looking box. It is just card. Don't misunderstand. This could be even nicer if they put it into like a nice wooden box or something. That's an idea. But this is still a nice looking box. But before I kind of show you that, I know some people do care about cartons. This is the back side of the carton. It's come out that way. But this is the reverse side of the shipping carton. It's Showtime is one of his catchphrases. A couple of logos on the back. You do get a larger size dragon on the front of it, plus his name in kanji as well down there too. So it's a nice shipper box if that's something that you do care about. I personally do. If it's going to look like that, that's something I do care about. But I know some people don't care about it. Even the rarest people after that don't even care about this box either. As far as this box goes, though, it's a very nice looking box. It's got that gorgeous blue. I love this kind of shade of blue. You got the dragon there. You got Date Masamune in Japanese kanji down there. This, I don't know what it says. I thought it was going to say Dokugan Ryu in Japanese, but it doesn't say that. So someone else can help me out with that. You got some nice kind of gold trimming and accents there, here or there. Got nice pattern work going on here. And then this banner down there as well. This name, by the way, is also kind of got this kind of gloss look to it. So it kind of reflects a little bit. Same down the side. And then the back just gives you a little bit of information about the figure. 32 centimeters tall, and a little bit of extra stuff as well. Like I said, this is Rocket Toys' first figure, so this is something I'm really excited to kind of show you guys and get hands on with as well. I've already opened it. Like I said, I had a sneak peek, but it is actually taped with official Rocket Toys kind of printed stickers on the side, so just cut them if you need to. But let's get this thing open. I'm super excited to get hands on with it. Super excited. Slide off the lid of that beautiful box, and then you'll be greeted with a nice printout of Date Masamune, the actual figure itself. Just pull this out so you can kind of display this separately if you wanted to behind the figure, or kind of keep it as a collection. I imagine Sanada Yukimura will also come with something quite similar. The reverse side is plain, and then you get a little sponge piece here that covers and protects the guy underneath there, which you can see just a sneak peek, it's looking really, really nice. Now, this is a layered or sandwich sort of style, similar to the Game Toys stuff that we saw. So this top layer has the figure and a few hand parts. Pull this out, and then on the second layer you'll get access to the swords that this guy uses as well. Just like Game Toys, they are going with sponge here. Now I do know that the Uchiha Madara figure by Rocket Toys is using plastic. Personally, I prefer sponge because I think plastic, like if it gets shipped to you really poorly, that plastic probably tends to or can crack and crumble, whereas the sponge I think will last a little bit longer. That's how I see it. It might not be true, but I just prefer a little bit of sponge, so I'm glad that they're doing that. And here we have Date Masamune out of the box. Now remember, this is the guy or the character that Capcom have come up with, not the actual real version of the Japanese warlord from real life. It's based on that, but not exactly the same. Capcom flower things up, and it's really a great design. And that's part of the reason why I liked Sengoku Basara as a series, despite really not getting much exposure to it in the West. Now, before I get into the whole ordeal of this figure and really how cool it looks, I did actually break mine. This is very disappointing news to kind of share, but I did actually break mine. Fortunately, I've kind of put it back together. And honestly, you won't really notice, and you won't know unless I told you specifically what to look out for. On a surface, you won't see it. It really is underneath the clothes. And even then, if you get hands-on with it, it's going to be something that you just kind of, by chance, might see that it's broken. But otherwise, it's actually quite well hidden. I think I've done a good job with it. But I'll explain that a little bit more later on when we get to the actual figure. Let's start with the option parts, or just actually briefly, quickly, this figure looks great. You can see straight away, he looks very, very cool. Now, when you get this out of the box, as you might have seen earlier in the video as well, he won't have the swords already attached. He won't have that Crescent Moon helmet already attached to it. So we'll go through everything bit by bit, and because once it's scaled, it's a little bit harder to do everything on camera. I won't show and do every kind of swapping the part. I'll kind of talk through it more. It's kind of straightforward in principle, but depending on you and your copy, some things like changing hands can be a little bit tricky, so you might need to use the assistance of a hairdryer, for example. But we'll get to that in a second as well. So skip around in this video depending on what you want to see. I've kind of marked chapters. But first we'll go with the actual head that you get attached to this figure by default. So again, you don't get that one with the mask. You get this one by default attached. And this is a really gorgeous looking head sculpt. The hair on this looks absolutely amazing. Now, one thing I do want to stress actually is that the hair can come off of this guy, which you can kind of swap between the two heads. But because one is using the actual mask, he doesn't have the chin strap on this one, basically. So you can still change the hair, you just lose the chin strap, which is a little bit of a weird oversight in my opinion, because, well, if you can change the hair, why not allow us to add the chin strap here? Anyway, when it comes to the actual look of this head sculpt of Date Masamune, it's really awesome. And I've kind of said this on the Collector Freaks forum that honestly, Rocket Toys and Game Toys are probably the same thing. I won't be surprised, because the guy here, the way that it's sculpted, the paintwork on this face, you can see different skin tones and shadings there. And the eye, the single eye that this guy has, really nice looking sculpt overall. And then the hair, of course, as well, is really gorgeously done as well. Each strand kind of sculpted. You do have a little bit of flex to some of the individual bits that kind of flicked out. So maybe that's actually why I didn't lean it down sideways. I just kind of kept it flat on the back. So it's really nice actual style. It's very simplistic hairstyle, but it looks really good on this head sculpt as well. Now you can, as I said, take off the hair. So I'm going to just shift it a little bit there so you can see the eye patch that this guy has. So remember, Date Masamune, the Dokugan Ryu, the one-eyed dragon, in real life, according to Wikipedia, he lost the eye due to smallpox. Don't know. I can't remember what happened in the anime. I think they changed it, but I'm not sure. But this is the eye patch there, which is really cool. And then you actually can see a little bit more of that band. I'm going to take it and shift it there. You can see there, you got that little extra strap that goes across the face as well. So really great attention to detail. I didn't even know you had that yellow bit there. But this looks great. I love this head sculpt in general. It looks absolutely amazing. The eye, by the way, if you take a closer look at the iris or pupil, it's not just a regular one, it's more like a snake's eye or a dragon's eye, which is great. I actually can't remember what they did in the anime either. Weird. Yeah, but yeah, it looks really good. I like the colors going on as well, so it's not just one solid color. It's got a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, which looks absolutely amazing. So I honestly think this head sculpt is great. I actually like it a lot. You just can't use the helmet on this. I mean, you can, but it won't sit perfectly like it does on the other one. But I do really like this head sculpt. I think I just like the hair. I think the look showing the hair without the helmet, I think is a really great look for this figure anyway. It looks really, really great. Enough about the hair. Let's quickly talk about the hands, then we'll go to the figure. So when you get this figure out of the box, these are the hands that are going to be attached to the figure. So both are the same, just a pair of these to just kind of grip any of the swords. It comes with 6 swords, so grip any one of these. And they're all going to be these black gloved hands with the gold kind of finger bone pattern on the reverse side that you can see here. If you look closely as well, in each hand, you can see there's actually kind of like an armor or gloved pattern look here. So it's almost webbed, if you like, or like a guard on there. If you see that. And then you can see there, I'll show you in one of the alternate hands, you can see the ridges there and sculpt marks there. Really nice attention to detail on these hands as well. You get a pair of sort of relaxed hands here, you can see, again with that same pattern of the actual leather ridges and the stitching, you might say. So it's slightly different. It's not like a plain glove. You get a pair of hands to also grip the sword. So this is an alternate pair to grip swords, but this is without the thumb pointed outwards. You can see again the way that these are all kind of sculpted and painted. And then you got the kind of more relaxed hands that you might have when you're just kind of standing around. You can see the creasing and folds there. And then this one actually might show you like how you see it looks a little bit webbed, I guess, over there. And that's because of that reverse side, which I think is really nice attention to detail. And then of course, what I've attached to the figure already is going to be the hands that are like that to kind of grip all 6 of the swords between his fingers, which just looks super, super good. Of course, also in the box are going to be each of the 6 swords and the actual scabbards as well, or the sheaths. So both one for the left side, one for the right side. They're all covered there. So you don't just get one single sword. They give you all 6, which is great. We'll go through that in a second just here. But you do also get a base with this guy. Now, generally speaking, I was okay not using the base with this guy. Obviously, for the long term, you want to use the base just so it doesn't fall down. So it comes with a pretty kind of standard looking base. It's quite reminiscent of the iconic Studios Street Fighter V Ryu that I just covered as well. It's quite similar to that. There is a bit of a ridge section down the central area here where I'm pointing, where the Sengoku Basara logo is. It's in blue, matching his color scheme as well. It's got a bit of a matte texture finish to it. On the front, you do have his name in Japanese there as well. There's a little bit of a sticker film on there, so remove that if you want that more shiny look. I'm just going to keep it on for the time being on my one. And then when you actually get it out of the box, you'll have the base itself, and then you have this stand pole. So you have the usual pole that the figure can sit on, and then you've also got this curved S kind of piece. I'm not sure why they give you that piece, but I've just attached it just to demonstrate that it's there and it works. So the stand is pretty self-explanatory, pretty basic, and should be pretty obvious to most people that collect 1/6 scale figures. So you'll be familiar with it. Now I'm going to take off one of the swords to give you a closer look at that, and I'll take off the middle one. So just usually when I put these on, it's easier to do left and right swords first, and then do the middle one last, because then that will trap the left and right ones in. But you know, you might want to tinker around with it and see what works best for you. So just to recap that again, so you got the left and a right one. So these are the outer 2 that I've done basically, and then the central sword or blade will go in last. So that sits on top there, you can see there. That's how I do it, and that's kind of what the picture shows in the actual instruction as well, which I didn't actually mention. There is an instruction sheet in there as well. It just covers very briefly a couple of things in terms of swapping head and the swords as well. So that's pretty much what I've copied. Now for the sword, he does come with 6 of them, as you can see, and they're all identical. They aren't heavy metal. They're basically plastic with that kind of metal kind of finish on the blade portion as well. If they were all going to be metal, then yeah, it would be way too heavy for this guy to hold in his hands like that. And already it's probably going to be a little bit taxing long term. So you can see the reflection there on the actual blade portion. My fingerprints are probably going to get all over this now, and yours will probably too. Get, say, a glasses cloth to kind of wipe that clean. Try not to get any scratches on it. You got the guard here, which looks super good. Remember, all of the swords are going to be the same. So I'll just show you this one here. The guard on this sword looks so good. It looks dangerous. It's actually okay in my fingers. Like, it's not too sharp or anything, but it looks amazing. I love the way that handguard looks. This is the actual end bit of the handle there with the wraps around it. This is just sculpted wrap. It's not real kind of fabric or leather. So it is just plain sculpted. And you can see the shape formation there. And this is the end as well. So it's pretty easy to actually slip into the kind of hand of, you know, if you're gripping the hand. So I'll just show you that right now. I will just slip that in. If you need to use a hairdryer, then by all means use a hairdryer. I'm going to do it this way. My bad. It's the wrong way around. Yeah, use a hairdryer if you are struggling a little bit. Just slip it in. So this is quite common for majority of kind of figures. So if this is your first figure, then there I've shown you how to do it. So that's how it's going to look. Up to you if you want to attach it to the hand first and then to the figure. Really is up to you. Sometimes it'd be easier one way and sometimes it's easier the other way. I'm going to take off the rest of the swords as well before we get into the figure because they'll just get in the way. But just to kind of show you, they do just slip into the hands or the fingers of the respective hands. So I'm going to take off all of these ones here and then I'll show you the other one. So just to kind of make it a little bit clearer. So what you actually do, hopefully it doesn't fall apart. So if I move his hand or turn the figure around like that, you can see how it's done. So as I mentioned, you get the outer one. The way I like to do the outer two first and then finish off with the middle one. And then these will basically combine and then they basically mash up together and then kind of force each other to stay in place. You will need to tinker around with it just a little bit, but that's how I done it. So they end up meeting all at basically its wrist, and then it should hopefully stay put. But I'm going to take these off as well. So take off the middle one, and then hopefully nothing falls apart. There we go. That's one sword, two swords, and then the final one as well. Actually, I will show you how they can go into the sheath. Every single sword can go into the sheath perfectly fine. Actually, again with this one, in order to make sure they all sit properly, you want to do the central one last. So get that one in first, the outer two again in first. So I'm going to show you one side here. I can't see his arms, the elbows in the way. There we go. Get that in, and then the last one. So if you can see that, they all sit flush. If you do it the other way around, then chances are they're not going to sit flush. So do it that way. Outer two first, and then the central one. So same as basically getting it into those hands as well. So it's quite cool. I mean, whichever formation you decide to use, whether you keep some swords there, some in his hands, yeah, it's up to you. He looks great either way. Now, let's have a closer look at the figure and also talk about the helmet, and I'll get to the sheaths again in just a second. So this is the alternate face that you'll get inside the box. So I've swapped it around as I mentioned earlier on. So this alternate version is because actually if you take off his crescent helmet, you can see the really ugly sculpt at that top. It is because this helmet needs to sit on top of it. So let's give you a closer look at this helmet right here. The crescent moon is a matte finish gold. There's a little bit of kind of color tone difference going on, which looks nice. I thought it was going to be a bit more of a shiny look to it. So I'm not disappointed at all. I still think it looks very, very good. The end bits aren't too sharp. They will poke out of the plastic that this is housed in inside the packaging, but that's no big deal. This is the backside and around the actual helmet. So you can see the detailing there as well. Otherwise, it's just kind of a hollow plastic. As you can see, there's a magnet up top because there's a magnet inside the head as well. So that's why it kind of holds nice and snug. You can feel it as soon as you get to about this close, you'll feel the magnetic pull. So it should keep it pretty snug. It might still be pretty easy to come off, but generally it should be okay. Now just kind of bring out this alternate head. You could sit it on top of that, but it'll be quite rough. This is basically about as far as you're going to get with it. So you could play around with the angle, but yeah, it doesn't really work with that, even though this head does actually have a magnet inside there as well. I'm going to leave the helmet to the back so it doesn't get in the way or anything like that. So just having a look at this head sculpt, you can see the difference in expression is ever so slight. So I'm going to bring out the other one again. So he's actually kind of smiling in this one, whereas the alternate one, or the original one in the left, he's got a much more serious kind of neutral lips as well. So yeah, I like both. I really do like both. Of course, the hair there is really throwing me off a bit. But both are very, very good looking. They do have the same sort of eye makeup detail going on with that one single eye, with the dragon eye looking, or the snake eye if you want to go with the snake eye. But that's what it looks like. You do have a difference, as I mentioned here. So this one is for the helmet use. So you've got the chin strap here, which actually does move. It is an actual strap, so you can move that down. There you go. But you can't remove the chin strap from this face and then put it onto the other one. This one has like little pegs on its cheeks that are hidden by the hair. So it's a bit weird. I do think they could have allowed us to swap the actual hair and head sculpt and then also the chin strap, but they didn't. It's very, very strange. Not a deal breaker, but just something that I think would have been really cool to see for this figure. Moving away from his head then, so you've got the overall outfit, which is that iconic blue that he uses. So for lack of a better term, we've got the blue robe, or the outer robe anyway. You've got a little bit of wire, I believe is some wire that you can use to kind of pose and pinch the collars here. Lay them flat if you want, or keep them raised if you want as well. And then you've kind of got this little bit that opens and flares out. Now, I might show you this later, I'm not sure. So you've got the sash here with that, say, gold S pattern. Actually, underneath this, there's a little bit of a clasp that keeps these the actual robe together, but it actually comes undone pretty easily once you try and like faff around and get the swords attached. Now it doesn't look too bad. It's actually perfectly fine. It's probably going to happen more often than not. But just letting you know that there is a little clasp underneath this if you want to have a slightly tighter fit for the actual blue part of his robe. Now the actual chest portion, or the actual main torso area, is this hollow kind of plastic with nice kind of markings there that is, he's already been in battle. So you got a nice little dent there, or kind of a cut type of graze thing there. Really cool looking. I would say though that even though it's quite sturdy, try not to put too much pressure in this section here, because I just feel like it might give one day. It's nicely sculpted. You got that essential line down there. I just am really paranoid, obviously, because I've broken my actual figure already. So I'm just more concerned that something else might break, basically. Anyway, so continuing on with his uniform, you got the black sash that goes around, and in order to get the actual scabbards or sheaths attached, so these won't be attached by default. You can see this little bit here, this I guess sash, honor sash, they slip through to the actual waistband that he's got in. So this is actually on a Velcro strap. So I'm going to take this off right now to show you. And actually, before I get to that, let's actually talk about the actual that pattern, the pattern on the back, which is quite similar to what he's using on his guard or swords as well. So you got the inner one, which is slightly different color, then you got a white one going one way, and then the outer one going a slightly different way as well. But let's go back to this sash. This is on a Velcro strap. I really don't want to use this too much because I feel like it will end up just, the Velcro will get weak over time. I'm going to take this off. What I'm going to do is I'll probably, oh, that's a magnet. That's something I would also might as well talk about now as well. So actually, to get the sheaths on properly, so first you've got to have them wrapped and feed them through on that little rope bit. If you can see that there where my index finger is pointing. And then on the other side, you'll see a magnet. This magnetic bit comes in parts. So what you might see on the underside is another magnet. Well, I've got it right here. So let's look at the one on his right. The magnet piece there, you can just position that how you need to have this sit on there. It is a fairly strong magnet. I actually think it's a very strong magnet. Here you can see the magnet. It actually managed to catch on. It's a fairly strong magnet, so it does its job in my opinion. Hopefully it'll be fine for other people out there as well, but definitely for me, it's done its job. But I'm going to take this off and take it off the magnet as well. So there we go. That little click is because the magnet managed to actually feed back on. So basically, yes, just to kind of show you this again, the sash, it wraps around and in through the actual sheaths or scabbards to make sure that it kind of sits on his waist quite nicely. As I mentioned, you do have a little clasp bit here, so that's actually going to be something that you can do. It'll probably come undone when you naturally try and get the scabbards on there, so don't worry too much about it. This actually gives us a better view of him without that, and you can see here the robe. Let me quickly talk about the robe. You do have some wires down the sides here, some wire down here, and then a wire in the center bit at the back as well, which allows you to do some really cool articulation. Once he has a sash on though, it's a little bit tricky. It's mostly going to sit flush with his legs, and just the rest of the overall look of this robe ends with the kind of white tips as well. In terms of texture of this kind of robe though, of the outer coat, it is kind of like a pleather, very similar to the Game Toys Sephiroth. It's very similar. Same with the pants, which we'll get into in just a second. Coming back underneath though, so it gives us a closer look at these little kind of skirt guards here that you can see. So one is down here, which is looped around in two holes there. There's actually additional holes, but it's only used the two outer ones. Same thing for this side as well. So you can lift these up and you can see a little bit of the male uniform, which you see from the sleeves is down there as well. Now this is where I actually broke it, and I've seen a lot of this guy. I'll tell you, I've seen his entire mid-piece crotch section. Let me just tell you that. So going to his pants, similar kind of texture and color, basically the same as the outer color there. By the way, the inner bit is a nice kind of, it's not a silk, it's a polyester probably, but it looks nice, the textures there. You do have a little bit of a clasp at the back, so this is where I broke it. So I might just show you. So yeah, I'll undo it and then just kind of show you his butt. So basically his hips is there. You see this bit here, you can see slightly there's a gap. I twisted him too much, so he doesn't actually have any waist twist. Do not twist him left or right, he just doesn't really have it. He can go about this much, like this. He wiggles basically. I twisted him way too much, and then it just it split apart and it broke on the actual mid crotch bit where my kind of thumb is sitting. That's where it broke. It did manage to kind of fit, well, I got it back together again. It still is technically broken. And if I kind of twist him too much, then yes, that thing will kind of give way and split all over again. But it's okay. As long as I remember not to do that, he's functional in the way that he should be. But just keeping that in mind, do not twist him, because that's what's going to end up happening. Again, fortunately, I was able to get him back together and then tuck his shirt back in, close this kind of clasp back on the back. And then, yeah, if I didn't say anything, would you have noticed? Probably not. I'm going to leave him like that for the time being. If you want to see his butt, there you go. That's his butt crack right there. Gives you a nice closer look then at the thigh guards, which is quite similar in material to the skirt flap and then the chest piece as well. And that's kind of nice there. You can see this pattern sculpt work going on there. Nice real paint work there as well, with different kind of shades, a little bit of black, browns, a little bit of dust weathering effect going on for each panel, which I think looks amazing. You come down to his knee, which is quite like, there's a lot of flex to that. Reminds me a bit of the Sephiroth from Game Toys. Sculpted little wraps around there. And then you got the kind of straps at the back, by the way, going back up to the thigh over there. And then we come down and finish off with the foot and his sandals. So these are just plain sculpted sandals. They're nice texture on, let's say, the sock, nice blue texture there. And then on the sandal as well. That's the underside of the sandal. Sadly, there is no toe pivot, which is similar to Game Toys. Again, I don't know what it is with Rocket Toys, Game Toys not giving us toe pivot. I did miss the shoulder guard, which is quite similar to the skirt flaps that we showed earlier on. And they are on these little straps underneath there that you can see. I haven't taken off the outer coat, so I don't know how that's going to look. I also will mention that he's got the white kind of turtleneck muffler underneath. And we did also mention the sleeves here that he has underneath this whole thing as well, which we can see is kind of tucked back there. Coming down to actually the arms again, or we didn't even cover the arms. He's got the forearm guard or protectors here with a pattern in gold. Similar sort of hands there with a gold kind of finger bones pattern. And then we've got another pattern down this side here. There is a lot of flex, by the way, to the actual shoulder, or not shoulder, the forearm piece. So when it comes to changing hands, I'm paranoid that I will end up damaging, say, this bit here because it's pointy, but a lot of flex. It's not going to be damaging to your fingers by any means, but just kind of paranoid about changing hands. And I think that really covers a deep look at this figure, including his, not even undergarments, but further than his undergarments, in fact. So there's a lot of detail on this figure in terms of his outfit. Definitely, there's a lot to capture there. Now, in terms of putting everything back, I'll have to do that off camera. But in terms of articulation, he's got decent articulation at the head. This varies slightly if you've got the helmet on and if you've got the alternate hair on. So the hair on this one is going to be a little bit more frayed. And then once you get the helmet on, it limits it a little bit more. But he can turn left and right decently. Play around with the position of the collars so they get in the way or don't get in the way. The arms are relatively good. So actually, for me, the right arm is a bit loose in terms of moving it that way up and down, but it's quite tight moving it outward. He can cross or fold his arms over, as we saw in terms of, like, say, kind of folding his arms over, or how I had the crossing of the arms over with all the swords attached. So he can kind of do that. Now, because of his midsection piece here, he's got no articulation in terms of twisting at the top bit. And then, as I mentioned, he has no like twist at the bottom. It is just a wiggle. Do not do it. I broke mine. I really don't want anyone else to break theirs either, because very expensive figure. And I'm very I'm disappointed I broke mine, but it was my fault for pushing it too far. But yeah, do not twist at the midsection. He doesn't really have anything. It's just a teeny tiny wiggle. Like, I think on camera he's probably looking a little bit exaggerated, but it's just, yeah, nothing. It really is nothing there. In terms of legs, he can kick up around there. I'm going to go pretty relaxed now, because, not relaxed, I'm going to go pretty conservative because I don't want to damage anything further. Kicks up about that much. The back leg doesn't really go back too much. Splits are quite limited as well because of his faux leather pants, around that much. You probably get a little bit more, but I would be concerned that you might split the pants there. So don't overdo it is my recommendation. You got the ankle pivot down there, and as I said, there's no toe articulation, which I really would have hoped they did do. Going back up to the hand and elbow, I didn't talk about elbow like so. And then the hand does have very slight, not very slight, it has decent range of motion, but a little bit kind of slight when it comes to bringing it out. So yeah, bring it forward. There we go. That's how it looks. Now it does expose a little bit of skin there. I don't know if that's supposed to be that way or if it's supposed to be the chainmail thing. Probably is supposed to be that way. If it wasn't, then yeah, a black joint would have been much better personally. But it is okay, not too bad either way. You might have one arm slightly stiffer than the other. That is the case with mine. But generally speaking, it is decent and will get you some pretty good poses nonetheless. As I mentioned, I just want to keep stressing it. Don't twist the midsection. You might end up breaking it like I did. So that covers the aesthetics and articulation of the figure. Normally, I'd go around and show you how to change the hands and the head. Now, I'll just talk that over. So simply pop that off or pull it off. The hair might come off instead. So be careful and mindful of that. If you want to get the hair back in, make sure each strand or the bangs, depending on the hair, does not get trapped. You want to make sure they're free before you feed the head back in. It is, or hopefully shouldn't be too difficult to do, but with 1/6 scale figures, it's just a lot more hassle for me to do on camera. So I just don't want to break anything, especially because I have broken him. So I don't want to cause any more damage with that. In terms of swapping hands, it is going to be the same as, say, the 1/12 figures that I mostly collect. You might need to get a hairdryer and then kind of warm the actual socket of the hand up a little bit, or dip it in some warm water, leave it for about 10 seconds in warm water, not boiling water, and then that might help you out a little bit. For me, it wasn't too bad to change and swap hands. I was actually fortunate, I feel, especially compared to some other 1/6 scale figures which I've had to really struggle with. This guy wasn't too bad at all. I covered the sword and the sheath and attaching all of that, so that should be straightforward. But going back to those sheaths, I did want to kind of quickly talk about the way that they look. So they have this really worn, dusty, just been in battle kind of look, which I really loved. So you can see the speckles of brown, a little bit of gray, and it constantly makes me want to just kind of wipe it clean. But I realized, oh, that's just the way it's been decorated and painted. So that's really nice attention to detail, really nice finish for these pieces here. So that's awesome. I really loved that. Minor to some people, but I think it really elevates the figure a lot more. So that really covers everything with this figure. These I wouldn't even say are necessarily option parts. The swords are really a part of this guy, but that really covers this guy. And actually, in real life, the guy's a dragon and he uses 12 swords. So Capcom actually decided to be a little bit more conservative. I'm just kidding, actually. So it's a really good looking character, really good looking character, really cool looking figure. But as I said, I did break mine, and I don't want you guys to break yours. Overall, this is a really awesome looking figure of an awesome character design. I love this design. He's one of my favorite characters from the Sengoku Basara series. He's very popular in Japan as well. Just look at him. He looks absolutely amazing. He's just crazy looking with 6 swords. And once you get them equipped in his hands in this figure, it just looks absolutely awesome. I really love it. The fact that he can grip all 6 swords and it doesn't weigh too much is actually pretty good. Long term, who knows what might happen, but for mine at the moment, I'm pretty happy with it. It just looks awesome. It's a very awesome looking figure. I love the uniform. It looks great. The head sculpts, both of them look absolutely amazing. I do hope that we would have been able to swap the actual face sculpt, but that sadly isn't the case this time around, at least anyway. Now, I did break my figure. As I mentioned, I broke it at the kind of crotch hip area. Now, that's because I twisted mine too much, because it just doesn't have much twist articulation. I went too far. That was really my fault. But that does mean I really hope that Rocket Toys in the future can add good twist to a lot of these figures, because I want to get them into slightly better poses than just museum poses on the stand. That's not really my liking. So if they can accommodate that, that would be great. Maybe it could twist and mine was just faulty. I'll need to dig into that a little bit more. But yeah, unfortunately mine did break. But if I didn't say anything, I don't think anyone would have noticed that I did actually break mine. Going back to the way the figure looks though, it does still look very good. Whether you got the swords attached in his hands or just by his side, 1 sword, 2 swords, different kind of combinations that you might want to use, it looks great. I think the magnet application on the sheaths is pretty clever. I think that's actually pretty smart. I like the way it works. They've done not just a magnet, but the kind of rope bit to wrap around the waistband. That's quite clever. As a combined way to get it all supported on the figure is quite clever, and it works. I think it works really well. Again, long term, it might not be so great, but for now, it looks pretty good. Details on the figure are amazing. I love, the scabbards and the sheath. The armor details are really good. Love the way that looks. I love his arms. They look great as well. And again, the head sculpts look absolutely amazing. So this is definitely a figure to get if you are a Sengoku Basara fan. It is quite expensive. I did get mine for probably £260, maybe almost 300 after customs charge. So it is definitely a very expensive figure. Very expensive figure. I'm not going to say if it's worth it or not to you, because it's all down to your individual circumstance. So while I wait for the Rocket Toys Yukimura figure to arrive, have a look at my channel for more action figure goodness, and hopefully I will see you in that next video. Take care.